All right. Hi, I'm Kelly Bean with Bean There Sold That team and with Villa Home. Welcome to our video series. This is video 3 in our Realtor and Mortgage Broker series. Please go to the YouTube channel Bean There Sold That and to support us and see all the other videos. Um, well, let's just get into it. Buyers sometimes have misconceptions or questions about loans. We want to take a minute and touch base on some of those questions. I'm here with Brooke Alvarez. She is a mortgage broker with Traditions Mortgage. Hey, Brooke.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. We've worked together many times on real estate deals all over Texas. And we've done USDA, FHA, VA, conventional, all of the different kinds of loans. So we'll jump right into asking some questions. Okay, so here's question number 1. What is the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval?
So the difference between the two, there's always gets confusing, especially in the state of Texas and what they require. Um, but the thing is nobody has specifically written out definitively what it is. But what everybody assumes the difference between the two is when you are pre-qualified for something, that means that you've called and talked to a loan officer. They've asked you some questions, you've given some answers, and they've given you a roundabout number of what you could be approved for. Based off of all of the information that you just said, you could be approved for this and you'd be approved for this program. Kind of a bird's eye view of your situation compared to the loan programs and the loan qualifications. When you get a pre-approval, that means that the loan officer didn't just ask you questions and get answers, they also collected documentation. That means that they've either done a soft pull or a hard pull on your credit. They reviewed all of your income documentation, all of your asset documentation for down payment and closing cost. They have 2 years of at least 2 years of work history for you, and they've done a full analysis of everything that you've said to them matches the documentation that you've provided. And it's so important on that pre-approval because sometimes documentation, a consumer will think they know what their credit score is, or they think that they know how they're paid, or they think that they know how much money they have. But when we look at them, sometimes it doesn't always add up with what our guidelines say we can utilize. Because when it has income, you can have income, but then there's qualifying income. And sometimes there are people out there that are getting paid and have jobs that we can't always use that income right away to be considered qualifying income. Or sometimes we get asset statements, where they're joint accounts or they've had large deposits and just different things on them. And so sometimes if that money can't be sourced, it can't be utilized and it's not qualifying money to be able to get somebody pre-approved. And so we've got a pre-qualification. When somebody says, "Oh, I've been pre-qualified," what I hear is, you've had a conversation with somebody, you've given them some answers, and they've told you roundabout what they think that you could be approved for and what programs would fit best for you. But that pre-approval, the difference is the documentation and providing it and allowing somebody to also look at your credit report. Because submitting all of that documentation is great and making sure we've got all our qualifying income, all of our qualifying assets, 2 years work history that can be proven. But also your credit is important too, because sometimes people think they know what their credit score is because they've looked at it on their bank app or they've looked at it on Credit Karma. And the score that we pull for mortgage pre-approval is not the same number that shows up on Credit Karma or your bank app, because we're using a mortgage valuation, a mortgage score, and that's different from consumer lending or rental verifications, credit card lending. When they pull your credit for that, they all get a different number than what we get. The number that we pull is specifically for a mortgage pre-approval, and it's called your mortgage credit score.
Gotcha.
So there's
So
a
when
big
we are
difference.
looking, when we are talking to clients, we want to make sure that they have a pre-approval, not a pre-qualification.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's that big difference between the two. The terms get interchanged a lot, which creates a lot of confusion. But when somebody tells me they've had a pre-qualification, what I'm hearing is that they've just had a conversation. When somebody tells me that they've actually had a pre-approval, that means they've gone through full documentation and full credit review to be able to get that pre-approval letter.
Okay, so then my next question would be why and when should you get your pre-approval for a loan when you're looking to buy a home?
So the why is the most important because, well, really when and why are very important. Why you should get the pre-approval and not just a pre-qualification is because we don't want the clients and the buyers to have their heart broke. It's so hard when these buyers are like, I can buy this much house or I can do these things. And then you get through the pre-approval process and it's just a completely different reality. So you don't want to get your heart broke, first off. And then the next part is you also don't want to go under contract spending money on earnest money, inspection reports, all of these things, and then get through that process and realize that you can't be approved for whatever, there's several different reasons that it can happen, but you want to know all of that stuff so that you're confident when you're shopping for a house to not get your heart broke and not waste your money.
One of the
When,
things on the real estate, oh, sorry, one of the things on the
okay.
real estate side of that that I talk about to clients is the fact that I don't really want to start looking for homes for you without the pre-approval because we're gonna see if you come to me and say, "Hey, I can afford a $350,000 house," and we go looking at $350,000 houses, and then your pre-approval comes back at 250,000, and you've already seen $350,000 homes. When you get in those $250,000 homes, you're like, wow, this is really small, or this is not what I expected. I want that I've already seen in the $350,000 homes. Well, sorry, and that's where you're saying heartbreak and disappointment because that's one of the things that I don't want my clients to go through.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's hard. You get excited, you get your heart set on something, and then it will completely change the trajectory of the rest of the process. Um,
Yes.
Sometimes in those moments, people have to take a step back and, regroup. Um, Sometimes people have to keep going because that's the other part too, is if you're in a lease and your lease is ending and you're stuck to a timeline or you've got to be somewhere, you've got to be moved in and settled by a certain time, if you go through that heartbreak, you don't have much time to get out of that funk and keep going to find the house that you need.
You have to kind of quickly reset and start over.
Yeah. So if you get that pre-approval ahead of time, it prevents all of that. And so then the other question is when you should start the pre-approval process as soon as you think you're wanting to buy a house. It doesn't matter if it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half, even. If at any moment you think that you want to buy a house, you should start the process. And the reason for that is because if there is something that is found or isn't going to work to get you pre-approved, you want time to work on it.
Yes.
The number of time people have come to me and they're like, "Oh, my lease expires, in 45 days or 30 days. I'd like to buy a house." And then I start doing the pre-approval and realize that their credit score is just too low. They need to do just a few things to get their credit score where it needs to be, or maybe they just need a couple of thousand more dollars to have saved. Or we realize that the way that their employer is reporting their income isn't going to translate, especially with like overtime and commission and bonuses. And if you're needing that income to be used to qualified, sometimes HR has to go in and change what they're doing to make sure that it's reporting consistently across the board. And so if you wait to the very last minute to do these things, then what happens, especially if your lease is only 30 to 45 days from being out, then essentially you are most likely going to have to rent again. And so then we're back to that heartbreak again. And so always, 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 as soon as you're ready to buy a house, you literally should start the process so that you make sure all your ducks are in a row. Because the other part, what also happens all the time, a situation just right now, people are like, well, we knew we were going to buy within the next year, but then this house came on the market and it's our dream home. It hits all of the buckets. It's got every little thing that we want, but essentially they hadn't started the process ever. And so now, by the time that they realize all of this is going on, the house is under contract.
Right.
No, because of course, too, that's when we're still in such a hot market, the good homes are going super fast, especially if they're priced right. And so by the time they realized this was the house we called, I mean, this is all within 24 hours and the home was gone. But they needed the seller, the listing agent was like, we got to have a pre-approval, but then they had another offer come through. And so just another moment of heartbreak that if you want to buy a house, you need to be ready at all times, either
Yes.
so that you can get prepared if something's not where it needs to be, or also too, you never know when that house is going to come on the market.
So from a lender side, how do you think that having the pre-approval makes the difference on strengthening your position when you're making an offer on a home?
It makes a big difference because it lets the listing agent and the seller know that you're serious and that you're capable of closing and that you will be able to close. It's a very hard, you know, to get somebody under contract and then to know that they weren't ever approved to begin with. So making sure that you have that true pre-approval, not the pre-qualification, makes you a stronger applicant if you, or not applicant, but a stronger buyer if you're already ready to go. Because at that point, too, if we're already pre-approved and you get a contract pretty quickly, we can close very quickly. And a lot of the times that's what the sellers want. And so it just shows your confidence in as a buyer. It shows your readiness as a buyer. Because that's the other part that makes it hard in a transaction is when you've got somebody buying, especially like on the lender side. So you've got somebody and you're trying to get them pre-approved. They're trying to go under contract, but they take 3 days to get you pay stubs, or they don't answer your phone and it's time to lock the loan, or you're trying, it takes 3 days for them to respond to what insurance policy they want. If you've got a buyer that takes a long time to get back to you, it's going to impact the process. And so when you have your pre-approval already done ahead of time, it just shows that you're a buyer who's confident, you're ready to go, you're attentive, you're going to make it happen, and you're going to be a part of the transaction to make sure it goes smoothly and gets to the closing on time.
All right. Anything else you want to add to it before we close out?
No, just know the difference between pre-qual and pre-approval. Your documentation makes the difference for me and for your real estate agent. So, because they want confidence too in knowing that you're a good buyer and you're ready to go so that people don't get into heartbreak. You've got heartbreak, you've got wasted time, you've got wasted money. As soon as you go under contract, there's earnest money, there's inspection fees, all of that can happen. And, just making sure that you're prepared and that you do it immediately. Don't wait till the very end, and definitely don't wait till your dream house comes on the market.
Yeah,
Sometimes it can be too late.
that's true. Well, thank you so much, Brooke, and we'll end the series here. And if you guys want to keep watching some more videos, go to Being There Sold That YouTube page. And of course, Brooke has Instagram and Facebook, and so do I. So we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Have a good day.